Hello, this is Thomas with LibertarianProgressive.com, and that is what you're looking at right now on your screen if you're watching this via video. This is the Libertarian Progressive 2016 Year in Review and going forward to 2017. So let's, how can we think about this? I can think of it as an ends to a means or a means to an end. Now, I'm going to show why I do think an ends to a means will probably work out better, but let's give you a example. For example, of what the opposite, the means to an end, is real quick, and then we'll go into an ends to a mean. And so, because before we can accomplish what we want to accomplish, and I'll tell you what Libertarian Progressive is all about and what we've done and what we're looking forward to do in 2017 and beyond here. But a means to an end is, like, for example, what you might call the social justice warriors or the alt-right reactionary. They don't like the status quo, maybe, or anyone might not like the status quo. One reaction might be to immediately fight back. And that might not always be a bad that might not always be a bad decision in a quick situation where you might have to, if a car fell on someone, you have to instantly react quick and have a knee-jerk reaction and lift the car up to save the person. There could be examples like that would be more than appropriate. In fact, probably the best response. But life has so many other challenges where it does take careful thoughts, like a master chess player or something like that, where you use strategy and think multiple moves ahead and analyze things for until you understand it and have thought of a lot of possibilities. And so because a lot of times when people don't like the status quo or they're just stuck where they're at, kind of like a baby, they call each other names, and then they start to become vulnerable to different fallacies that are introduced to them, like the enemy of my enemy is my friend type thing, which doesn't mean that's not true, but it certainly doesn't mean that it is true, and emotion rules a lot of things. So that would be the means, like calling people names. What would be the ends of that? Being divided and conquered? Staying in a vicious circle, where you feel pride and you have to save face? I mean, that's just going to create strife where no one can agree on anything. All right, so now what about the ends? So, you just react and you're doing means without any end goal in mind. Now let's switch that around, where we have an end to a means, where we think about the end first and walk ourselves backwards to find the right path to get there. So what is the ideal that you want, or that you would love for your kids or grandkids and beyond, and even for yourself? I mean, let's think big here. What would be something that you would want? What's ideal? This is what we're really talking about. This is really possible. I know a lot of the popular YouTube videos right now that are getting a lot of likes are fake pranks and people begging for thumbs up. Well, if you want to change the world, and if you see something here that's common sense, and you appreciate someone not giving a fake prank or acting stupid, then think about giving this a thumbs up and sharing, subscribing, liking, commenting. Let's get honesty and truth and life and a prosperous and peaceful future some momentum. So those are the ends. So the ends are the ideal. Living by the Constitution, Atlantis, peace and prosperity, the streets are made of gold, the shining city on the hill, utopia, Renaissance. I wouldn't be so bold to say the kingdom of heaven, but, the golden rule, civilization. And so what would be, so that is the top of the pyramid. And I'm not trying to get all conspiratorial here, but just to, picture this out here as some kind of organization where that is the goal, as realistic as we can possibly to obtain this. Nothing with people are going to be perfect, but so what what else would be some other things that would be the ends to stop unnecessary wars, but at the same time have an invincible defense? Maybe instead of fighting for oil overseas, have renewable energy and technology that we invest in. Just call it defense spending. Having a level playing field, a fairer game. Equal opportunity, but not equal results. Just like if you're playing any game, if you're playing a game that the referees are fair, etc., and and whoever practices the most is going to win, etc., then that is true competition, and people can respect that. People will tune in and watch that. But no one's going to watch a fixed game if they know it's fixed, right? Not in the real market. Where small businesses can compete with big businesses. Here's a conspiracy that big businesses actually create and love these regulations because they're the only ones who can afford to keep up with everything. And, an era of reform where we look forward to reform instead of hiding from it. How about a lot more laws having sunset provisions? So if we pass something in the passion of the moment, at least we know it's going to expire in 7 or 5 years and have to be revoted on. Nothing that's like fundamental like the Constitution or that has to do with civil liberties, but any law that restricts rights or raises taxes, that would have to have a sunset provision. Imagine no more revolving doors getting regular people into the government to represent us. No conflicts of interest, just common sense reforms, just kind of like we have in a lot of areas like the courts. Judges can't preside over relatives, and there are laws like that, so it'd be good to have them apply throughout the entire government. Treating certain issues as health issues, like drugs and stuff like that, not having cruel and unusual punishments. Okay, and where old people aren't having their homes raided because they're dying of cancer and having a pot brownie, or little kids that have seizures, have to have their parents move them to out of state, where someplace where they can legally get the medicine that God gave us to grow on this earth, to change from like 300 seizures a year to like 2 or none. Real justice, no quotas in the judicial system, complete transparency. I mean, there should be nothing except maybe some top secret things, but that should still be seen by representatives that are made in smoke-filled back rooms. I mean, real accountability, oversight, a true balance of power and due process, election reform, fair and free trade. I mentioned those things. They're all common sense, but those are all things that whether you're on the left, the right, the center, wherever, you can agree on those. Like, I would say that's a 90% consensus there. So we can bicker all day long till we get nothing done except having more and more of our rights taken from us because we're being divided and conquered and we're building strife instead of building consensus. We're arguing with the people that we should at least get these things done first. I just mentioned very basic, fundamental things. Nothing too technical. I didn't get into education, not too much energy or health there. And those are the real disagreements anyways. I got into fundamental things that will create an environment for peace, prosperity, like we've never seen. I mean, it's the best of times, it's the worst of times, but you have to admit the American century has been very prosperous, and there's been, unseen things that have never been seen before, like man going to the moon and, huge middle class and lots of technology like the internet, which is like an exponential 10 times greater printing press. So, I mean, there are advances in medicine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's because of freedom and innovation, arts, invention, appreciation, loyalty, confidence, and love. And that can only be grown in an environment of freedom, so our Constitution is like a technological document on how to have a successful society. And having confidence in the society that you're in, having the feeling that you're not getting ripped off. I think everyone now has a feeling that they are getting ripped off in some way. People don't believe it's a fair game. People think it's a rigged game. I mean, like we have a casino, stock markets, and a place. I mean, people do still want to defend this place, and it's still the best place on earth, but you want a place where people really are adamant about it, that it can promote the system that we have instead of second guessing it, and support it sincerely. And so how do we get to that place? Well, I mean, this is again ends to a means. Again, some other parts of where that end is not being taken for granted, not having representatives that are arrogant, out of touch, having real representation. And so where are you going to get that? Well, that has to be, so to be not taken for granted, having arrogant, out of touch, and gaining real representation, I would say you need competition. All right, so going down the pyramid, you're going to need some choices. You're going to need to make a decision. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is not the Einstein way of, doing a science experiment, right? You don't want a monopoly. When you have a monopoly, you're going to get what is offered, and you're not going to have any other choice. It could work for a little bit, but that innovation isn't going to, there's going to get stale after a while. Just look at the American century. I mean, like I said, it's not perfect by any means. So how are you going to get more competition? How are people going to not accept that they only have one choice or two choices, a duopoly or a monopoly? You're going to have to think new. So here's the next step. You're going to need to think new. You're going to need to think about new possibilities, new paradigms. And so you're going to have to think about new possibilities. And what are the new possibilities? You have to either reform the monopoly, but how do you get the monopoly to reform? You're going to need competition. So even if you're a diehard Republican or Democrat, the best thing in the entire world that you could do for your Democratic or Republican party is to give it some competition. Vote for a third party once in a while. I mean, it's just kind of like, if you're a coach of a football team and you have a quarterback who's like really lazy and sloppy and arrogant and just taking it for granted and starting not to practice and getting really lazy and not as focused, messing up more, throwing more interceptions, making your team lose. You know what? Maybe the threat of a the second string coming in to start next week might up their game, right? So yeah, that's what a third party could do, and maybe it's time for that third party to be that quarterback. And same thing with any position, a wide receiver, etc. So how are you going to get more third parties in? Okay, so that's next. You have to have election reform. And what kind of election reform are we going to need to get third parties in? Well, we need them in the debates. That's true. Maybe not requiring as many signatures as the Republican. Or maybe only requiring the same amount of signatures as Republicans and Democrats. A lot of third parties actually require sometimes 10 times as many signatures. I mean, that's discrimination against your possibilities, your possible choices. Possibly you, if you decide to run or no one's someone who is. What can we support at the initiative referendum level? Score and rank voting. Did you know November 8th, 2016, the state of Maine was the first state to pass through initiative referendum rank voting for the members of the state house and also the federal house and senate and governor. not for president, but for all the other positions. They're going to have rank voting now. I like score or rank voting. They're both in the right direction. And so most other countries have that. Most other countries have third or fourth or fifth, etc. parties that are more than just an afterthought. So how are we going to get rank and score voting to pass? You're going to have to inform others and support such initiatives. And how are you going to do that? Well, here's the bottom of the means. We started with the ends, which is a new renaissance, and we're working all our way down to how to get there. This is the opposite of a means to an end. This is an end to a means. We're going to build consensus. And we're going to do the opposite of calling each other names and just see the things that we have in common and how to get there. And then we can argue about the things that we disagree about once we get to this point, which, funny enough, I think will probably end up being a lot less disagreeable once we could get to that point. I'm sure there'll always be adamant disagreements. So how do we do that? Well, let's talk about LibertarianProgressive.com. And here's the website right now. And what have we done? What do we do? Well, the highlights for 2016 is we have interviewed 48 independent and third-party candidates running for the U.S. Congress and some state representatives, mostly for the U.S. House of Representatives, that were all on the ballot. These are not just like write-in candidates. These are people who have gathered enough signatures or somehow got on the ballots. They're just as on the ballot as Republican, the RD, the Republican or the Democrat. And out of that 48, 47 were the only third party option in their specific districts. So there were at least 47 districts out there where there's only one third party option. So they didn't have to compete against other third party candidates. They were the only one. And there were more because I didn't get to interview everyone, but so there's probably like 77 or 67 that were like that. And so, we have a website. I just showed it. We have social media. I mean, here's our Facebook, and I also have a Twitter and a Pinterest, and here's the YouTube channel. If I click on this playlist here that shows, here's all the interviews. They range between 25 minutes to an hour. In-depth, good interviews. I kind of try to be original, try to be objective, try to cover all the issues, try to be a little bit like Brian Lamb, a little bit like Larry King. There's a lot of people that I admire who are interviewers, and but anyways, and try to be original as well. And we advertise slightly, very so slightly, mostly in message boards, and just telling people, hey, you have more of a choice than just Republicans and Democrats. There's more going on this year, 2016, November 8th, than just the presidential elections. There's an equal branch of government that deserves co-equal time in the media. A more powerful branch, I also was on Blog Talk Radio, and I posted all these interviews there as well. We've reached tens of thousands of listeners. So we've made an impact, and if those tens of thousands share that idea with like just a couple people each, then that exponentially grows. This is unprecedented. It's the most ever done. Sure, like there's some, C-SPAN might have interviewed, maybe 25 candidates, and most of them are Democrats and Republicans throughout the entire year. There's a couple other places like the Young Turks or Alex Jones, they might have interviewed 5 candidates throughout the entire year, maybe 7 candidates at the most. We've done 48 candidates. I actually did 49. I'm not counting one because one was Republican. I accidentally looked at their information wrong, gave them a call, and once we started the interview, I realized that they were Republican. I thought they were a Libertarian, but I just decided to continue the interview anyways and put it up there. But my main goal is to give voice where voice hasn't been given that choice. And some of these people did were in a three-way debate with their Republican or Democrat counterparts, so they had more of a chance to reach a larger audience. So, this is unprecedented. This should be big news. This should get a lot of media coverage. A lot of media should be taking this idea and stealing it and doing it. And that's part of what I want to talk about for the goals for 2017 and beyond, especially 2018, where there's a midterm election. I want to improve the website, kind of like put a WordPress type look to it, You can also, here's, if I click on our interviews main page, here's all the House of Representatives interviews, the U.S. Senate, gubernatorial, state representative, and someone running for Attorney General. Have all those interviews. By the way, here's our Fundly. You can get it from our main sites. So far, we need to get this above $10. I have 701 days left to reach a goal of $50,000. Here's what we want to do. Let me get back to this. Have some time to invest. I mean, in this time that I interviewed 49 people, it took me a month from about October 10th or about October 8th to about November 8th. 1 full month to interview 48 people while I was working full time. All right, and I didn't make a cent off this, by the way. Except that I know I'm investing in the future for a more peaceful and prosperous world and country. I want to advertise. I want to place ads in USA Today. When you visit YouTube and you see on, the upper right-hand corner or whatever where it tells you, vote here if you think Trump's going to do a job, or vote here if you think Hillary should be investigated, or if you think Obama, is a good president. All that's nonsense anyways. I mean, what are you clicking on so they can get your email and put you on an email list? And who cares? No one's going to see those results, and they don't mean anything after the fact. Right now, I mean, not to say polls and public opinion doesn't matter, but those aren't even issue questions, really. How about seeing some ads? And I give examples of them here on the Fundly page that says, do you know all your options this year for Congress? Have you researched all the candidates? Would you be opposed to living in a new renaissance? Why doesn't the media usually cover independent third-party candidates? And does fair competition matter? Does how the game is played matter? Does Congress exist to represent and serve the people who elect them, or do we, the people, serve Congress? Would you like to see a brand new Congress? Elect them all out. Could you pick random people from the phone book and expect better representation? And I don't mind any suggestions to add to that. Imagine if this can reach millions of people, just the meme of it. Have this be a possibility and a real, possibility, okay? And have the media cover candidates. Imagine if, bigger media. I mean, look at some of the people I have shown in my favorites on my YouTube here of channels I recommend. I mean, here's one, Secular Talk. They have how many hundreds of thousands? 436,000 subscribers. Here's let me show you. I mean, some of these alternative media sites: 214,000, 517,000 subscribers, 3 million subscribers, 1 point something million subscribers. If those media networks started catching on, and we'll pressure them to do that, and if they interviewed, imagine if they all interviewed 48 independent and third-party candidates, what would happen to the paradigm? Then that idea would break through. I don't care if people take this idea. I want them to take this idea. Every video I put up is Creative Commons. And so you can edit it and make it better. I've done even some of that myself with the interviews. I've created what's called quick clips, and just taken the best 10 or 16 minutes out of it. And so, just attribute it back, and so the goal is, what if, we can get this catching on, and have that end. It's going to start with just something like 10 people in the House of Representatives who are independents and third party. Then 2 years after that, it's going to grow exponentially. Then there'll be like 25, then 30 or 35, then 50, then 100, which is like about a quarter of Congress. There's 435 members of Congress and of the House, at least, and I think another 100 for the Senate. So we need some more competition. And then, so it starts with building consensus. We'll work with the means here. Then we're going to inform people and gain support. And then people are going to support things like score and rank voting, which is election reform. Then you're going to actually start seeing some third-party candidates and independents, and then people are going to really realize the possibilities. The dam will break at that point, the dam of the wall that's blocking us. Then so goes the monopoly, and then real competition is introduced. Then we start getting real representation. And then our representatives stop being out of touch, arrogant, and not taken for granted. Then we live in a society where there's more love, confidence, appreciation, art, innovation, conversation that's civil. Then people start living in a place that they are proud of. And, then we stop unnecessary wars, get out of debt, have an invincible defense, more renewable energy, a level playing field, more opportunity. Not equal results, but equal opportunity, more justice, more sensible common sense ideas. Then we're in a place that you can call a new renaissance, and where we should be in the 21st century. So learn from the past and give possibility to the future.